I turned 68 the same winter my husband died. It was lung cancer. Quick. Quiet. He faded like the first snow, slow enough to watch, fast enough to feel like I missed something. His name was Charles. He wasn't a loud man, but when he made a promise, he kept it. And before he passed, he made me promise something too. Don't live alone, Ellie. Let Mark take care of you. You gave him everything. He should give a little back. Mark is our eldest. He's 43, a bit stiff in the way men get when they think emotions are weakness. But deep down, I thought he was kind. Thought. After the funeral, I packed 2 suitcases and called him. He didn't sound ready. Yeah. Right. You're coming. Tomorrow. Right? I said yes. He didn't say anything else. I didn't expect much. Just a place to rest my head. A quiet room, maybe. After all, the house I was returning to wasn't just any house. It was our house. The one Charles and I bought when Mark was little. The one we gave to Mark and his wife Stacy when their 3rd baby came and his business was on the verge of collapsing. We'd moved into a tiny 1-bedroom apartment just down the road. Charles said, we'll always have a place in their lives, even if it's not under the same roof. But after that, they never invited us over. We met at restaurants, at parks. I hadn't stepped inside that house in years. So when Mark opened the door that winter morning, I saw it again for the first time, not as a mother offering shelter, but as a guest waiting for permission to enter. Was today the moving day? He asked, scratching his head. Behind him, the entryway was stacked with shoes and unopened boxes. The air had a strange sourness to it. I hesitated on the doormat. No one offered to help with my bags. Mark didn't carry my bags. He just stepped aside and let me in. The house smelled tired. Not dirty exactly, but lived in past the point of care. There were old takeout containers near the stair rail, a pile of mismatched socks beside the couch, and wrappers, so many wrappers wedged into the corners like they were part of the decor. Then I saw her, Stacy, my daughter-in-law. She was half reclined on the sofa, one leg tucked under her, scrolling on her phone. Blonde highlights, neat nails, not a hair out of place. She looked up just long enough to say, "We don't have an extra bed. Just clear out the space near the laundry," then turned back to her screen. "I'm wiped. Long day at the salon." That was it. No hello, no welcome. No hug for the woman who once signed over a house so her grandchildren wouldn't grow up in a cramped rental. Not even eye contact. Mark pointed vaguely toward the back of the house. "You can take the room on the 1st floor. Upstairs is full." I nodded. Said thank you, though I'm not sure anyone heard it. The room they gave me had a twin mattress leaning against the wall and plastic bins stacked to the ceiling. I spent the first hour just making floor space. One of the bins cracked open when I moved it, spilling out old Halloween decorations and a broken hairdryer. I didn't complain. I was tired too. Not from the drive, but from the ache in my chest I couldn't quite place. It wasn't homesickness. I hadn't had a home in years. It was something else. Something colder. Later that evening, I overheard Stacy telling Mark in the kitchen, "She better not start acting like she runs the place," and him replying, "Relax. She's just here 'cause Dad made me promise." I sat on the edge of the mattress and looked at my bags, still zipped. That night, I slept in the same house I once gave away, surrounded by storage bins and silence. I woke early the next morning. The floor was cold. My hip ached. I found a folded bath towel and laid it under the sheet for padding. It wasn't much, but it was something. No one else was up. The kitchen light was off, but I stepped in anyway, hoping to make coffee. The sink was full plates with hardened cheese mugs with lipstick stains, spoons stuck in cereal bowls turned to concrete. I rinsed a cup, made myself instant coffee with powdered creamer I found in the back of the cabinet. I didn't mind. I'd cleaned up after people my whole life. It was muscle memory. That afternoon, Stacy came home early. She breezed through the kitchen heels, clicking her salon apron still on. She glanced at the now cleared counter and said flatly, "Did you move the stuff from the hallway?" I nodded. "Just to make room. I didn't throw anything out." "Well, don't. We need everything in this house." Then she disappeared upstairs. I thought of the box I'd pushed aside that morning, old shoes with holes in the soles, tangled extension cords, a broken humidifier. Everything, really. But I didn't argue. That night, Stacy asked, "Aren't you going to help with dinner?" I blinked. Of course. What would you like me to do? She pointed at the sink. Dishes. I'm making meat dinner that night was just meat. No vegetables, no sides, just browned ground beef in a big pan set on the table with a few slices of white bread. The kids grabbed fistfuls like it was candy. No one asked if I'd eaten. No one passed me a plate. I did the dishes after quietly, carefully trying not to scrape too loud. The sponge was worn thin. I used the back of a spoon to scrub the hardened spots. The next morning I started cleaning again. Not because anyone told me to, but because I couldn't sit still in that kind of mess. I opened windows, aired out the rooms. I lined up items in neat rows, things I didn't dare toss, though any rational person would have called them trash. Old mail, empty bottles of lotion, broken toys. When Stacy got home from the salon, she barely looked up. "It's fine. Just throw it all away," she said. But later that night, I overheard her whisper to Mark in the hallway. "She's doing all this to make me look bad." "What kind of mother-in-law moves in and takes over?" Mark murmured back. "Just let her tire herself out. She'll stop." I didn't say anything. I just folded laundry that wasn't mine and swept crumbs I didn't drop. The only ones who seemed to notice were the kids. Lily, the eldest, hugged me around the waist one afternoon and said, "Grandma, it smells like Christmas in here now." That nearly broke me. Not because of what she said, but because of how long it must have not smelled like anything at all. After 3 weeks, the living room looked like a photo from a magazine. The carpet was clean. The windows shined. The children stopped leaving half-eaten snacks under the cushions. No one thanked me. Not Mark, not Stacy. But I didn't expect that anymore. 6 months passed. I kept the house clean. I cooked, I folded, I picked up every forgotten sock, every sticky wrapper, and no one ever said thank you. Then one morning I walked into the living room and found them gathered around a stack of travel brochures. Mark had a laptop open. Stacy was comparing hotel prices. Lily leaned over the table, eyes wide. A summer vacation, theme park, hotel with a pool, museum stop on the way back. I didn't ask if I was coming. I assumed I wasn't. But then Lily turned around and said, "Grandma's coming too, right?" Stacy paused. Her lips tightened. Mark looked up at me like I'd just walked in from another planet. "Sure," he said, but it sounded more like surrender than invitation. That night, Stacy handed me a to-do list. "You can prep the breakfast boxes and do laundry for the trip," she said. "It's the least you can do since you're coming along." So I did. I packed their bags, labeled the kids' shirts, washed the towels, boiled eggs, chopped fruit. By the time we left, I'd been awake since 4 a.m. The car ride was long. I asked for a restroom break twice both times. Stacy sighed like I'd suggested we stop to dig a well. The second time, Mark muttered, "You should have stayed home if you can't handle a trip." At the park, the sun was merciless. The heat rose off the pavement in visible waves. The kids ran ahead. Mark and Stacy followed. No one looked back. I sat on a bench near the entrance under a thin patch of shade. My shirt stuck to my back. I'd forgotten to bring water. Someone, maybe a staff member, must have noticed because the next thing I knew, I was lying on a narrow cot inside the park's medical office. Mild heat exhaustion, the nurse said. She shouldn't be out in this weather without rest or fluids. I heard voices outside the curtain. "A man, stern scolding you left her." "An elderly woman alone in the heat," Mark stammered. Stacy said something about me being independent. No one offered an apology. Back at the hotel, they helped me to the room. Mark closed the door and said flatly, "Please don't cause any more trouble." I didn't reply. I just sat on the bed and stared at the pattern on the carpet. Brown diamonds, beige trim, worn in the center just like me. I must have drifted off. When I opened my eyes, the hotel room was dim. The curtain filtered in a soft orange light from the sunset. Someone had left a cold bottle of water on the nightstand. I sat up, slowly dizzy. My legs ached, my back too. But mostly it was my chest, that tight ache you feel when you know something is about to break. A knock on the door. Then Stacy walked in. She looked at me, hesitated a moment, just long enough to pretend she cared, then said, "Mom, we need to talk." I nodded. "You should know better," she began. "I mean, come on. Isn't it a little much for someone like you to be on vacation?" She shrugged. "Maybe it's best you go home. You're better at cleaning anyway. I blinked. Just once. You want me to leave now? I asked softly. Alone, Mark came in behind her, rubbing the back of his neck. What else do you expect, he said. We only brought you because of Dad. Don't think you can freeload the whole trip. There it was, that word freeload. I had packed the lunches, washed their clothes, paid my own admission ticket. I looked at them both, and in that moment I didn't feel sad. I felt done. All right, I said. I'll head back. They didn't stop me. Back in the lobby, I called a taxi. The driver raised his brow when I gave him the address 3 hours back. That's far, ma'am, he said. You sure? I reached into my purse and pulled out a platinum card I hadn't used in years. Is this all right? He nodded. Of course. He drove quietly, gently. At some point, I fell asleep in the back seat. When I woke, we were almost home. I didn't cry. I didn't curse. I simply thought, if I stay, I disappear. But if I leave, maybe I begin again. By the time the taxi pulled into the neighborhood, the sky had turned lavender. The porch light of my old condo, the one Charles and I had moved into when we gave Mark the house, was still working. The building looked small, but clean, familiar. I still had the keys. I turned the lock, stepped inside, and exhaled for what felt like the first time in months. The air was stale but peaceful. No voices, no footsteps, just me. The furniture was gone. The condo had been up for rent, but the last tenant moved out weeks ago. That was luck I hadn't expected. I sat on the bare floor with my suitcase still zipped. There was no mattress, no pillow, but it felt more like home than the house I'd scrubbed clean and been told to leave. The next morning, I made 2 calls. The first was to a moving company. The second was to a real estate agent. This is Eleanor Harper, I said. I'd like to sell 417 Crescent Hill. There was a pause. The house, the agent asked. It's still under your name. Yes, I said. Always has been. 3 days later, Mark called. Mom, what the hell is going on? Apparently the agent had shown up to begin the valuation, and Mark, well, he panicked. I agreed to meet them in person. Not to argue, just to explain. When I arrived, Stacy was pacing in the kitchen, arms folded. Mark looked pale, like someone had pulled the ground out from under him. You're selling the house, he asked. I nodded. Yes. I'm cutting ties. This is part of that. You can't do that, Stacy snapped. This house was your husband's. It was meant to be ours. I turned to Mark. Do you remember ever changing the deed? He blinked, looked at Stacy, then back at me. No, but I just assumed. After Dad died. You assumed, I said gently without asking. The silence in the kitchen stretched long. Stacy's voice finally broke it high and sharp. You've lost your mind. What gives you the right to pull the rug out from under us? I didn't raise my voice. I didn't flinch. The deed is in my name, I said. Always has been. Mark frowned. But wasn't it part of Dad's estate? No, I said. The house was mine, not his. I inherited it from my parents. Your father never owned it. That made them both stop. It was like watching 2 people realize they'd been living inside a story that someone else had written. That can't be, Stacy said. You didn't even work. I looked her in the eye. That's what you assumed. But assumptions aren't facts. I walked over to my purse, pulled out a folded statement, slid it onto the counter. You've been getting monthly deposits from a company called EH Capital Group, haven't you? Mark nodded slowly. Yeah. I thought that was from Stacy's salon income. Stacy whipped her head toward him. Excuse me, I just thought it was your business name, he said. You always said you were making money. She stared at him, stunned. I've barely turned a profit in 2 years. Mark turned back to me. Wait, those payments. They were from you. Yes, I said. For 10 years, I explained calmly. After I inherited from my parents, I didn't want the money to cause resentment, so I started a company quietly. EH Capital Group, EH for Eleanor Harper. I used it to send funds to help Mark get his business off the ground, then to cover the children's schooling. Then slowly it became their safety net, a safety net they never even noticed. I never stopped helping you, I said, even when you stopped seeing me. Stacy sat down hard, like the weight of it had hit all at once. Mark rubbed his face, trying to piece the years together. "Why didn't you tell us? Because I didn't want credit," I said. But I also didn't expect to be told I was freeloading. There was nothing left to say. I reached into my purse and pulled out a second envelope already sealed. "This is notice of termination," I said. "No more monthly transfers. Effective immediately." Mark stared at it like it was a bomb. "You can't do that. My business was never profitable," I said. "You just didn't know because I kept it afloat." Stacy didn't speak. She was still staring at her hands, her fingers curled tight like they were holding something invisible together. "What about the kids?" she whispered. "You'd leave them?" I shook my head. "I'd never leave them. But I won't keep enabling the two of you to fail louder each year and call it growth." Mark stood up desperate now. "You can't just walk out of our lives like this." I looked at him, my son grown, but somehow smaller than I remembered. "You walked out of mine a long time ago. I just didn't see it then. I left the house that day with nothing but my bag." Behind me, their voices rose, blaming each other, fighting over whose fault it was. It didn't matter. I wasn't staying to listen. 2 weeks later, I got word Mark's business folded, the bank pulled out, loans dried up. Stacy filed for divorce. Neither of them wanted custody. The children were placed with me. I didn't cry when they arrived, just hugged them, made hot cocoa, and asked if they wanted to help make soup. They nodded. No questions. Lily peeled the carrots. The middle one swept the floor. The youngest arranged the forks. No one raised their voice. No one asked for anything more than what they were given. We sat down to dinner, and for the first time in a long while, the room felt warm. The condo isn't big, but it's enough. 2 bedrooms, a kitchen with a window over the sink, and just enough sunlight in the morning to make you think about coffee before you smell it. The kids have chores now, real ones. Lily packs her own lunch. Ben makes his bed without being told. And little Miles, he sweeps every corner. We don't run a tight ship, just a quiet one. They're not afraid of breaking rules, but they've learned how to care for something. And more importantly, someone. They bring me tea when I'm tired. They ask before taking the last cookie. They say good night every night like it's a gift, not a habit. I haven't raised perfect children, but maybe I still have time to raise good people. The deed to the old house was signed over last month. Gone now. Just a line in a folder I don't open anymore. Sometimes I still hear Stacy's voice in my memory. "Someone like you should be cleaning." She was right. I am good at cleaning. I cleaned the dust. I cleaned the mold. I cleaned the noise, the blame, the guilt. I cleaned the version of myself they couldn't see past. Last night, Lily asked me what makes a place feel like home. I didn't answer right away. I just wiped down the table, folded the dish towel, and said, "A clean place isn't about spotless floors, Lily. It's about knowing who belongs." She nodded, didn't ask more, and neither did I. If you've ever lived in a place where you weren't seen, if you've ever given more than they thought you had, if you've ever been told to go, then you know. You don't need to say anything. You just need to leave the door open behind you and walk away without turning back. Because the secret to a clean life is knowing what to throw out.